It's the live sit and talk with Matthew Batrap.
That's right, it's time for another live sit and talk. And this is a sit and talk and not a sit and play, even though we will be actually discussing Tactica today. Hey, that rhymed. That was totally unintentional. I should have actually scripted some cool ongoing rhyme for the entire show, some 60-minute long poem. That would be pretty epic. It would be an epic poem. So yeah, but that's not going to happen, not today. So welcome to our live sit and talk, and we're going to be doing a few things today. So I want to give you a brief synopsis of what we'll be covering, and of course there will be the extra stuff that I don't think of beforehand that I just decided to do. But I have some news, some things just to update you on in relation to things like Apocalypticon, to painting miniatures, to Infinity, to some things over here. I have some stuff to show off to you. We're just about done the studio. I know we've been just about done for a little while, but the finishing touch has taken a little longer than I had anticipated. And I will show you, I'll show you that in a second. And then we are going to actually do some live Tactica. And so I'm going to leave this, the Tactica itself is going to be kind of open. In other words, I've got stuff set up that you'll see. Here, I'll show you. See, we got a table set up over there. And so I'll be going over there. That's why I got my wireless mic on so I could walk around. You can hear me no matter where I go. And I'm going to do some Necron and Tyranid Tactica. So it will be Warhammer 40K related. And I'll answer your questions because I know people always have questions about tactics. So don't submit any questions yet in the chat. So not yet. When we get to the, well, we might, if we have time, we'll do some just plain old Q&A as well, and we'll try to answer your questions. So first off, it's time for some news. There's been a few things that I've posted as news on our YouTube channel, on our website. The first off is that we're giving away a bunch of scenic bases. Now, a lot of them are already gone. I think about 250 or 300 out of the 600 are gone, so almost half are already gone, and we just posted it yesterday. So you better get it while they're there. If you don't even want to take the time to listen to me right now, so you can make sure you can go and check them out, go to MiniWarGaming.com/free bases. So essentially what happened is about a year and a half ago, we acquired a bunch of inventory, Mantic, Spartan, Army Painter, and also these bases from Forgecraft Games. And Forgecraft Games is a company that does bases and a lot of other stuff as well. You can check them out at forgecraftgames.com. Anyway, that wasn't even a sponsored thing. I know it sounded like one right there, but we're not affiliated with them any more than just happening to have their bases that we bought off of another company. So we were cleaning up and we came across these and we're like, yeah, we had decided not to sell them just because we didn't want to go through, it costs extra to get them listed and then have to restock them, and we were already struggling to get all the other stuff going there. So we came across and we're like, well, what are we going to do with these? This is actually, it's probably retail about $8,000 to $10,000 worth of bases. And we thought, well, we could list them on the site and liquidate them. But why not give them away to entice people into the vault? Because we always like to try new ways to get people to actually try out the MiniWarGaming vault. Because the biggest constraint that we have there is people just don't even want to try. They're like, I'm not going to pay for content. I can go on YouTube and find more battle reports and tutorials. And it's like, I understand, but you can say that about almost anything. I'm not going to pay for a season DVD, or I'm not going to pay for cable because I can go online and get it for free. I mean, cable TV, obviously. So it's always, that's always an interesting one to say. I'm not going to pay for your food. I can grow some of myself. It's like, well, there's I don't even know why I'm going on. It's not even a necessary rant. And so it's a big effort just to get people to try it out. But once they try it out, we have a very high retention rate, meaning that most people stay. Most people really like the vault, and they stick around. And so that's awesome. So the bases, we're giving them away. I already said that. So go check it out, miniwargaming.com/free bases. There's a limited amount of each base, so you can go through them. There's links so you can research which ones you want. You only get one. You have to pay shipping and handling, $4.99, and that doesn't even cover our actual shipping cost. But that's okay, we'll eat the extra shipping cost because we're hoping that you'll stay around as a vault member, and then we'll be able to make that money back and then some as you stick around month to month or year to year. But don't feel guilty if you decide to get them. Just pay the $5 and then cancel afterwards. That's perfectly fine because I'm trying to bribe you and get you in so you'll try it out, because then I know you'll get hooked and that you'll want to stick around. So there we go. So that was the first announcement. The second announcement is Apocalypticon 2013 is just around the corner. It's just a little over 2 weeks away. 2 weeks tomorrow. It's July 26th and 27th. It's not too late. There are still a few tickets left. Not very many. I think there's like 7 tickets left. So far, as of right now, the number of people that have registered, we have over 600,000 points of painted miniatures coming. Painted. I want to emphasize that. Last year we had 500,000 points, roughly. I think we were just shy of 500,000 points. But like half of it was unpainted, including the ginormous Titans. Like I don't think any of the really large Titans were fully painted. Or I think only one was base coated. The other ones weren't even base coated. This year the requirement is that everything has to be painted to at least 3 color standard. So not necessarily painted well, but it has to be painted and based as well. And so that's going to be a huge difference when you start to pan the camera around and when you're there at the event yourself. It'll just be so much more eye candy, because even poorly painted miniatures, when you lay them all out and there's tons of them, you won't notice as much how badly painted they are. And so it really adds, it's a lot better than just a bunch of black miniatures, or a bunch of gray miniatures, or a bunch of white miniatures, or a bunch of half painted miniatures. No, these are fully painted miniatures. So, so I'm pretty excited for that. So you can still get a ticket to come. It's $50 to attend. And it's July 26th and 27th. It's Friday evening and all day Saturday. It's a lot of fun. This is our 4th one. Yeah, this is our 4th one. So we're at 4th annual Apocalypticons. We're pretty excited for that. We've already got the t-shirts in. I should have actually grabbed one and brought it out here, but I forgot to. So, no. And I know a lot of people have been asking, are we going to be using the new Apocalypse rules? The answer is most likely no. I've ordered the book. I know it's been shipped. I should receive it this week. From what I can tell, it's not that the new rules are bad or anything. It's just that it's too soon. It's 2 weeks away. We had 1 year where 6th edition, I think, came out. Like a month before Apocalypse. Was it 6th edition or 5th edition came out? I don't remember. And we said, no, we're not using the new edition because it's too much to learn. And you might think, well, it's 2 weeks, you got plenty of time. Maybe for you, but we've got like almost 60 attendees. And so you're asking all of them to learn it. So will you be allowed to bring models from the new rules? Yes. You're allowed to bring any Games Workshop authorized formations or data sheets. So yeah, you just have to play with the old rules. So if it's a new model and has the Destroyer rule, for example, and we decide not to use the new Apocalypse rules, then you have Destroyer, but you'll use the old Destroyer rules, not the new Destroyer rules. That's just one example. So yes, the new data sheets are allowed, but the new rules will most likely not be used. We'll update that on the MiniWarGaming forums in the Apocalypticon section once I have the book in hand and I can read it. If it's just like a few little changes, like the Destroyer table and then a few other things, then we might consider using it because it won't be that much for people to learn. Okay. And then the other update was, oh yes, the painters. We've recently opened a program where if you are a miniature painting service, you can exchange your painting services in exchange for advertising on MiniWarGaming. We've done this in the past with companies such as Worthy Painting and Blue Table Painting, and it's done really well for their business. That we get the miniatures in, we make videos of it, and they get advertising, and that usually gets them a lot of commissions. So if you're interested in that, email me, Matthew@miniwargaming.com, and I will give you more details. We've already had tons of them. I think we've had like 40 or 50 applications so far. And we've already had some of our, we've already got commissions going out. We're just mailing some today for painters to paint so that we can finally get more models painted. So if this works out, then you'll see a lot more painted models, like newer stuff, not just the same old, same old. And you'll see the new releases painted up on more quickly, because obviously we can't get them painted within like a couple days of the new release. We're not the ones that own the models, so But if we can get them done within a month of a release, then I think that's doing pretty well. So I'm looking forward to updating my Khador army, to updating our other studio armies, adding new studio armies, and of course getting more Dreadball stuff and Infinity stuff done. Speaking of Infinity, I've got some cool stuff to show you. That is an Infinity model. I'm not going to be able to show you up close. I forgot to set up a camera. See, that's about as close as I can get, and it gets past the lights. But Greenleaf Terrain did this commission where they painted up our first Infinity models. So I got about 25 models here, including this big guy. I've been doing reading in the Infinity book. I've got somebody coming tomorrow, Chase. His name is Chase. He's agreed to come in and teach me how to play Infinity. I've read through the rule book and I get the general idea, but you definitely, learning the basic rules of a game, it's not usually too hard. It's usually learning all the intricate details and how things interact. So I'm very excited for that. because it means that we're that much closer to having Infinity battle reports. And so I'm going to be learning Infinity. I'm going to get Jay and Owen learning Infinity, and I'm going to get more of these models painted up as well. Right now we've got, I believe the two armies that I have here are Pan-Oceania and Yujing, I think. Well, somebody on the chat, tell me, this girl on this bike, is she Pan-Oceania or Yujing? I think she's Pan-Oceania. Come on, somebody tell me. Because this guy is Toha, because he's a new release, I know that. This is the one that we got exclusively. Infinity, or Corvus Belli, has agreed to send us all their new, there's two things actually. They've been sending us new releases, which is awesome, which is really why we want to support them. And also they've been giving us one per month, an exclusive release. In other words, that nobody else gets to showcase it until it comes out. So, and so I believe we have Yujing. And then what do you think? Is this guy Pan-Oceania or Yujing? So nobody knows in the chat. Well, you're going to be learning all about Infinity. That's Toha? Really? This guy's Toha? I thought I didn't have Toha. I thought it was only this. I thought it was only this guy that was Toha. I know this guy's Toha because that was our exclusive release, so I remembered reading about him. I thought these guys were Pan-Oceania, but I don't know. Yeah, you can also look it up on their site. That'd be great. I don't have time right now in the middle of the live show. But I don't know. Yujing is supposed to be more. These don't look Japanese, and that's today. Yujing is supposed to be the whole Asian, Japanese, Chinese thing. They don't really look it, so maybe they are, maybe they're not. I'll be learning it. So yes. Anyway, so I'm very excited for that, and of course, if you want to get commissions done, Greenleaf Terrain. Adam from Greenleaf Terrain does do commissions both for painting and for terrain, as you know. In fact, the table that we will be doing the Tactica on, this was created by him for us, for our new studio. It doesn't. That's not all the terrain that was on there. I've taken some off so we can have some playing space for the Tactica. So check them out at greenleafterrain.com. So Aleph, or Aleph, that's right. It's not Yujing and Pan-Oceania. It was Aleph and Pan-Oceania. So, Bardorp is asking, am I Chinese or Japanese? No, I don't believe I have any Asian in my heritage. I'm like European through and through, like Irish, Scottish, French, English. Those are the ones I really know about. It's possible I have a bit of Jewish in me, but like it would be really tiny. So, and I see, Avenger, you asking your question over and over again, and you are correct. It is not the time for this, so please don't ask the question over and over again. This is not time for open Q&A. We will be doing that later on if we have time. So, do I have German? Yeah, I think I have some German in me as well. But I know I have lots of English, French, Irish, Scottish, like that region. There's tons of ancestry in there for quite a while. So yeah. Yeah, anyway. Because we're like 3rd or 4th generation Canadian on some of the lines. So we're relatively new to Canada. Some of the lines were very new to Canada, but and then my wife is like super English because her dad's actually from England, and then her mom traced back in this English as well. So our kids are going to continue to be English. Anyway, so but we eat much better food. I guess we eat more like the French, like good food, good food. Do I have any Russian in me? Right, maybe. I don't know. I don't know all the stuff. My dad knows. He does a lot of genealogy, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I think that's all the announcements and Infinity stuff. So I want to show off some of this stuff, some of this fun stuff. So one of the last things that we're working on is to decorate the walls. As you can see behind me, the wall is very plain and boring. That's where the Wall of Fame is going. So we still have to put the contributors, the $500 plus contributors who didn't get the lifetime gold vault members, vault memberships, the ones that specifically chose Wall of Fame and the Own a Table. They need to go up on there. So we're going to be working on that soon. And also owning the table, we've got these 2 brand new tables, and so we're going to actually have one of these be for one of the contributors who did $1,000, and the other one that's being worked on right now, the big War Machine table, which is going to look awesome as well. It's going to be for the other contributors. So they're going to own that. They're going to have their little plaque on the side, and it's going to be the Andy table, like that kind of thing. So it'll be fun. So I want to show you a few of these. Papa Smurf is actually the one who framed them. So these are homemade frames, and we bought pretty much, I think we got all of these off of DeviantArt. So I don't know if I'd recommend DeviantArt to people, because there's a lot of nudity and a lot of pornography kind of stuff on it. And I know some of you on the chat and people watching this are like, oh, that's not bad. Well, I hate to tell you, but it is. If you don't agree, that's okay. But it is a good source of finding really cool art and really good artists if you're looking for concept artists. So here's one. I found a lot of really good like space art. I wish I could find more like Warhammer specific stuff and War Machine specific stuff, but all the War Machine stuff is done for Privateer Press, and so they can't sell prints. So there's a bit of copyright infringement there. But if you are an artist and you want to do a commission for us, either Warhammer or War Machine, or you have something already that you've created that you think is worthy to go on the walls, email me, of course. And if you're willing to give it to us for free, we'll print it off and we will frame it and get it up on the wall, if it's good. I'm sorry, we're not going to put stuff that's not good up on the walls. So that's a cool one. And then I got a kind of a fun one. I don't even know. Does anybody recognize these characters? Are they from something? I saw it and I'm like, hey, I like the colors. And I like the colors. I like the cartoon. It's kind of fun. That kind of like typifies MiniWarGaming. You know, we're fun. So yeah, anyway. So there's that one right there. I don't remember the artists for each of these. I just kind of went through the DeviantArt shop and kind of scanned through the sci-fi and fantasy stuff. And then we got this one. This one's really nice. It's hard. It's a little dark on the bottom, but it's this like some sort of cathedral thing with this like aqueduct bridge thing going around on the top of a waterfall. Totally impractical, but really, really cool looking. The nice sunset off in the background. I know it does kind of look like Space SpongeBob. That's what it reminded me of. And then there's this one. We've got a bunch more than this too, and Ken's actually just about done them all. He's working on them right now. This one's beautiful, and it's huge. So I love it. So these are going to be going up on the wall in different areas, just to make it so there's to add color to this room, because right now the only color in this room is the white and the charcoal borders, and the floor, of course, is brown, and then you got all the tables. They add color, and we got the background over there. You can see it in the background of this one right here, where we have the wall set up with all the products. That adds color, but we still need more. So yeah. So I'm pretty excited about those. They're finally getting done. They should be done today or tomorrow, and then we can start hanging them and finally get the rest of the wall stuff done. So maybe we'll actually be done in the studio within the next week. We've been using it, obviously, but it'll be nice to have the background looking even nicer. Excuse me. And yes, I think J.J. Abrams did make that last one because the lens flare was so big. Poor guy. That's all he's going to be known for, is the lens flares. Although I have to admit, there was a ridiculous amount of lens flare in that first Star Trek, and the second one too, but the first one was just like excessive. Like, how do people like live with that many lights pointing in their eyes, no matter where they look? So, Hammer T saying, actually, I wonder if it'll help with the amount of sound in the room when there are multiple bat reps being recorded. It gets a lot of background noise. I agree. We're going to have to experiment with that, because that is one of the challenges that we face. Is that, you know, in a perfect world, we'd have a room for every battle report, and that way the sound could be kept to a minimum. And now, for a lot of our battle reports, it doesn't matter because we do voiceover, so that's not too big a deal if there's other noise going on. But like Dave, he generally only does banter bat reps. Actually, only does banter bat reps, and Jay and Owen. Dave only does banter bat reps, and Jay and Owen sometimes do banter bat reps. Like if you're doing like Kill Team, or like the smaller games that are quick, you tend to want to do those banter style and not voiceover style. So yeah. So, is there room for standing dividers between tables? Yeah, but it wouldn't look nice. So, but that's not a bad idea. The problem is we're also going to be opening this place back up as a club within the next month probably. And so it needs to be flexible in the sense that more tables need to be able to be set up, so you can't have these dividers. But I guess if they're portable dividers, so you gotta have it in such a way that it's quick and easy to use as well, that there's not tons of setup every time we want to do a battle report, because we need to keep time down to a minimum. So I'm getting questions, so after the posters are up and the donator plaques are up, the studio is done? The answer is yes. That'll be up. That'll be it. So I'm still not sure how I'm going to do the Wall of Fame, how I'm going to put the names on there. Like, I could just do like the very simple plaques with the engravings, but there's two problems with that. One, it might be too reflective, and two, it's kind of boring. So do you guys have any suggestions, like fun ways that we can put those people's names on the wall? Like, the plaque thing will work just fine, especially if we do them nice, which I'm planning on doing. One of the people who donated actually for the Wall of Fame actually wants their wife's name on there in memory of her, which I think is really, really nice. Kind of a sentimental touch to the studio. So, I don't know. Draw their names with a marker on the wall. So, yeah, I don't know if that would be it. Have them make their own. You can do them in the style of the donator's favorite tabletop game, different fonts, war banner. Caricatures might be funny. Big purity seal. Purity seals, that's not a bad idea. Now, somebody just said something, beat map bat equals winners get a small plaque they put on the wall. We actually do have an idea to have a pie plate challenge wall, that with when you play against Dave and you get pied, you get a picture taken with you standing beside him with whoever was pied, of course. Make your kids do them. Melt down characters to form their names. Get a graffiti artist to do them. I thought Chris's method was cool. What is Chris's method? What is Chris's method? Mel paint them? I kind of like the purity seals idea. That's kind of neat. I'll have to look into that. Or something along those lines where it's like on something. Chris's method for making bat reps. Oh, you're talking about battle reports. No, that's not what I'm talking about right now. Dog tags. Well, that's a lot of cool ideas. So that'll actually give me some ideas to work with. So, okay, so that's all the announcements and everything. I just wanted to show those off, and I did. I showed the new models off, and I think that's everything I wanted to talk about before we get into our Tactica. So, let's go right into the Tactica. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start off by opening it to questions, and then I'll just kind of see where it goes from there. I might go off and stop answering questions and just cover something for a while, or if the questions come in a certain way. I hope you have a transition, Marshall Aid says. Of course I don't. Of course I don't. I should have made a transition for Tactica, shouldn't I? Oh, I should have totally made a transition for Tactica. I wish I had Vegas on this computer because I would actually do it for you right now. Because I have another microphone right here I could use, so I wouldn't have to use this microphone. Just loudly shout. So even though it had to be something along the lines of this.
It's a live sit and talk with Matthew Babrap.
Yeah, see, then I have like the other ones that were like, hold on. I don't have them prepped because we got like this one. Oh, where are you? See? Hey, aren't you playing? Oh, it's just a JPEG, that's why. What happened to my Q&A? Must have taken it off somewhere else. Doesn't matter. I had some other ones as well. So yeah, so it's like, it'd be like Tactica, but with like different harmonies and stuff, and it would be really cool and not at the same time, which is kind of, you know, yeah. Anyways, so it's time for some Tactica. So yeah, it's been, okay, yeah, transition, and I do Tabasco style. Anyways, so I'm going to start off, I want to do Warhammer 40k Tactica, focusing on Tyranids and Necrons. So you can ask questions about orcs in relation to Tyranids or Necrons, like how do orcs beat Tyranids, or how do Eldar beat Tyranids? And I will tell you when I don't know the answer to something, because I haven't played played against all the armies extensively, but I have played Necrons and Tyranids quite a bit. So yes, so go ahead, ask whatever questions you want related to that. If I don't get very many questions, then I'll just go over. I have some ideas of what I will cover as well. Fishy Spot says, how do Dark Eldar beat Tyranids? Well, I will talk about how Tyranids can attack Dark Eldar, because I have a good idea of how I'm going to beat them next time. What's the best way to bring down high toughness monsters creatures with Imperial Guard? Daisy says, 40k talk, time for me to go. Have fun, folks. I realize the games aren't everybody's cup of tea. How do you think Nids handle power armor the best? Let's see which one I want to cover first. How do Nids beat Dark Eldar? Maybe that's what I'll talk about, because that's been my big challenge. And I've played a few games against them, and I think I see how to do it. Although, with a disclaimer there saying that I haven't actually beaten Dark Eldar yet, so maybe that's not the best thing for me to give you Tactica on. The problem with the last game that I played, I saw the Dark Eldar list first. I had already created my Tyranid list, and I had created it really strong to go up against Dark Eldar. And then I saw his list, and I didn't think it was a strong list, so I went back and changed my list to make it weaker, and then it turned out that the game was really close. So if I had stuck with my original list, I might have actually beat him. So I think I will switch this to slow mode. There. Good idea, Mystics. Thank you. So slow mode, it's on slow mode now, so now I can talk really slow. How do I get close to those Necrons with pure demons? Oh, that's a good one. I've played against demons a few times, and I beat them without much problem with Necrons. So much firepower. You have to understand one thing with Tactica before we really get into this, is that 40k is by no means a balanced game. In fact, it's far from it. And so sometimes the answer is you can't beat it. I'm sorry. If they bring this stupid list and all you got is that, then sometimes it's just like no matter what you do, unless the dice go insanely in your favor, you can't win. So, yeah. How do Tau beat Deep Strike and Tyranid armies? How do you beat Wraiths? They seem so good for their points. For Necrons, should I use massive vehicles or massive bodies? Which is worse, Saturation Fire or Templates? How does Chaos beat Necrons with no demons? Nids versus Guard, other way around. Okay. Okay. Wow, lots of questions. I don't even know where to start. Okay, I just got to grab one of these and start. So let's talk about Dark Eldar and Tyranids. So let's go over here. So Dark Eldar and Tyranids. So I'm away from the chat now, which means I'm not going to be able to see what your questions are. I will come back to it, but I want to talk a little bit about Nids and Dark Eldar. So far, in all the games I've played, Dark Eldar have been the ones that have given me the most grief. And there's two main reasons for this. First off, poison. And second is also poison. And then they've got a lot of lance weapons as well. The Dark Eldar aren't particularly hard to kill. If you watch my last Dark Eldar vs. Tyranids battle report, I'm going to give spoilers here, so cover your ears for the next 5 minutes if you don't want spoilers. Then you would know that that game was very close. Both sides lost almost everything, but he had brought some Eldar allies with the new Wraith Lord, or the Wraith Knight, sorry, and the Wraith Knight just basically allowed him to win the game because there's nothing I really had to take it on. And so the army that I had brought, I'll show you. I actually have it right here. And I was surprised, actually, at how well the army worked. So first off, I had a bunch of Tyranid warriors. These guys right here. I didn't have any Turvagons or Tranifexes, but I did have a Swarm Lord. It's one of the things I'm getting painted up very soon. And a flying Hive Tyrant, so a winged Hive Tyrant. And then we had some Raveners, which performed quite well. And, oh, I don't have the models out here. I forgot to bring them out. I had some Hive Guard. Yep, they're not out here. Sorry, won't be showing those. And the real stars of the show were a couple Zoanthropes inside of a Mycetic Spore. So let me talk about the strengths and weaknesses about each of these against Dark Eldar. So let's zoom in a little bit. And then let's pan down. There we go. So let's talk about these units in particular against Dark Eldar. Well, first off, what it really comes down to is I don't think I will ever bring any monstrous creatures against Dark Eldar ever again. Okay, no matter who brings Dark Eldar, I am not bringing monstrous creatures. The reason for that is because I had brought the Swarm Lord, and he had 2 Tyrant Guard with him. These guys provide basically 2 extra wounds each to the Swarm Lord, who already has 5 wounds on Toughness 6 with a 3+ armor save. And I had given him Biomancy, hoping to roll Iron Arm, which wouldn't have made a difference because Iron Arm increases your strength and toughness, but poison just ignores your toughness altogether and just wounds, in his case, on a 4+, because it was poison X. There's no strength to his weapons. And so Iron Arm wouldn't have mattered, but I did roll Endurance, and Endurance allows me to get Feel No Pain, and it will not die. Now, the problem with it will not die is it only comes into effect at the end of your turn. So if he kills you in one turn, it will not die does not ever activate. However, the Feel No Pain essentially gives you that extra 5+ save on top of your armor save if you get one. Or if you even don't get a save, then you can still at least do the Feel No Pain, as long as he doesn't inflict instant death, which he'd have to do with a special rule because it's toughness 6. And so in one turn, this guy had Endurance on. 5 wounds +2 +2, that's 9 wounds. In one turn, he completely destroyed the Swarm Lord with the shooting. Now, there's a couple things I should add there. One, I sucked at my Feel No Pain rolls. I think I failed, I think it was like, there was 9 wounds he had to get through. I think I made 1 Feel No Pain. So that's like 10 times that he wounded me, and I failed 9 out of 10 of those, essentially. And so that was bad. I could have maybe survived, but he still had a bit more shooting left at the end. He could have finished them off. So that was the first problem. The second problem was the way the deployment was. See, the deployment was hammer and anvil. If you're not familiar with what hammer and anvil is, it's where one side deploys on the short table edges. So rather than deploying this way, you deploy this way. And what that essentially did, it gave him a big advantage. And I'm not complaining here, by the way. I'm not trying to be like, he only won because of this. I'm more trying to explain why the Swarm Lord could have done better, and it was kind of my fault for the way I played him. So the Swarm Lord, he had a big advantage because I had further to go. Now you might think, well, it's always 24 inches. That's normal. That's true. But at the same time, he has a lot more space to kind of sit back. He doesn't have to be right up to his deployment zone. He can sit back a little more. And the Swarm Lord came out in the open, which was a mistake as well. There wasn't any terrain on the board that would block line of sight. I might have been able to use that to my advantage, or at least get some cover saves. But he was out in the open, so he didn't even get cover saves against the things that ignored his 3+ armor. So there's a lot of things that could have gone differently to keep the Swarm Lord alive. That did not happen. So I can't completely complain that it's a Dark Eldar being overpowered or anything like that. And by the way, I don't think the Dark Eldar are overpowered. I think they just are a perfect counter to monstrous creatures. And so that's if you know that you're playing Dark Eldar, then you can tailor your list. And yes, I think you should tailor your list. Otherwise, you'll end up like me every time I play against Dark Eldar and keep losing. My first game against Dark Eldar, I brought 5 Turbogons thinking, hey, this will be good. And he killed 2 of them in the first turn before I even went. And those 2 were surrounded by Termagants who all got backlashed. And then he had wounded a 3rd one on top of that, and it was just downhill from there. So yeah. It just didn't work out with them. And then the Flying Hive Tyrant came on, and he had a flyer on who shot the Flying Hive Tyrant, only inflicted 1 wound, but I failed the grounding test, which you make it on a 3+, and I failed that the very first shot. So he got grounded, and he actually took a wound from being grounded because it was a Strength 9 hit, no saves allowed, no armor or cover saves allowed, and then the rest of his army shot him down. So we're talking like, oh, how many points is that? 280 plus another 9, like almost 400 points. And he was like another almost 300 points. We're talking 600 points almost of my 1,500 point army was just shot down without any resistance whatsoever. So the only points that they were worth was the firepower being drawn into them. So that there's always a certain amount of points that a model is worth. Like if I put a 50-point model on the table, a lot of times people say, well, he made his points back because it killed 50 points of models. Well, that's not the only way you can make your points back. You can also make your points back by drawing lots of firepower. For example, the Doom of Malantai. This is not the Doom of Malantai. This is a Zoanthrope that I proxy in as a Doom of Malantai because there's no model for the Doom of Malantai, and there should be. He is 90 points, I think, and then you always take him in a My Set Explorer, which costs 45. So essentially you're paying 135 points to be able to bring in a Deep Striking Doom of Malantai. And people ask, well, why didn't you bring that against that Dark Eldar player? Because the Doom of Malantai is too effective. And we don't play our battle reports to tournament levels or to tournament styles. Some of the players who come against us do, but we try not to. We try to showcase different things. At least most of us do. Some people have more problems doing that than others. But anyway, the Doom of Malantai is 135 points with his My Set Explorer. He comes in, he drops in, and he can potentially do a lot of damage with the 3d6 leadership. So essentially, if you're not familiar with the Doom of Malantai, and then you're a very lucky person. Because the Doom of Malantai will drop in, assume that these Tyranids are all enemies to this Doom of Malantai. At the beginning of every shooting phase, whether friendly or enemy, Any unit within 6 inches of the Doom Malenti has to take a leadership test on 3d6. And for every point they fail it by, they take a wound, no armor saves allowed. Cover saves and invulnerable saves are allowed. It can't target guys inside of vehicles. You know, we can debate that all we want, or debate whether that's a good idea all we want, but they can't. And so he's here, so at the beginning of the shooting phase, these guys would take a leadership test on 3d6, these guys would, and even the Swarm Lord would, and if the Tyrannifex or the Hive Tyrant were close enough, they would as well. And no matter what your leadership is, rolling it on 3d6 is hard. And so he can rake in a lot of kills that way. And so that's the first way that he's good. And that's fine. But really where he makes his points is he drops in, he gains a few wounds. If you're super lucky, you'll get him up to 10 wounds, because for every wound he inflicts, he gains a wound. And he's toughness 4 with a 3+ invulnerable. And so I've seen in every single game that I brought him in, and I've brought him in quite a few games, he'll either kill a lot of guys, or he'll draw a tremendous amount of firepower. All of a sudden the entire army's like, we have to kill this guy. Now you can insta-kill him, you know, with a strength 8 weapon, or higher, or a weapon that causes instant death. But the problem is he has a 3+ invulnerable save, so no matter what you hit him with, unless you have a weapon that forces a reroll an invulnerable save, or somehow ignores invulnerable save, like the Swarm Lord, for example, if he was fighting a Doom Malenti, he'd be a good counter to it for like 3 times the points. But because his close combat weapons force you to reroll your invulnerable save, so all of a sudden that 3+ save isn't nearly as good. But for everybody else, they just got to kill him the old-fashioned way. They got to put enough wounds into him that he fails enough of his invulnerable saves. And those strength 8 and up weapons don't usually kill him, because you don't have as many of them, and he usually makes his 3+ invulnerable save. So he draws so much firepower that even if he doesn't really kill much, he makes his points back. So that was a bit of a sidetrack or a tangent to talk about how the points value of something can be made up even if it doesn't kill anything. So the Swarm Lord and the Flying Hive Tyrant, taking so much of the firepower away from his army, made up for some of their 600 points out of my 1,500 point army, but definitely not 600 points worth. So the fact that the game was so close actually shows that the Warriors, Raveners, and the Zoanthropes did quite well. And so the Raveners did really well, except for when they got overwatched and he rolled a lot of 6s. The Zoanthropes were awesome because I destroyed a vehicle with my Hive Guard, and it dropped a little group of Archons, or sorry, what was it? Incubi with an Archon, all grouped together because they came out of a Venom, so it forced them to be grouped together. And 2 Zoanthropes fired their Warp Blast into them, and both of them got direct hits, and it just destroyed the entire unit. So that was really good. So overall, the game was really interesting because of that. So what would I have done differently for that game? Assuming that I kept most of the models from this army, obviously taking out the 600 points of Swarm Lord and Hive Tyrant would be the very first thing, and replacing it with lots of other things that aren't monstrous creatures. So the trick is, what do you replace it with? Do you replace it with a bunch of Hormagaunts, or a bunch of Termagants, or maybe even Gene Stealers? Gene Stealers I don't think would be it, because Gene Stealers are best when they can actually make it to the enemy and there's something else to give them screening, or to screen them. Like you bring them with a lot of Hormagaunts or a lot of Termagants so they can get to the enemy and the Termagants die. Or if they choose to shoot the Gene Stealers, then the Termagants are usually in the way and they get cover saves. So I would take these out and I would bring a lot of Termagants. Now if I were to build a list from scratch to take on Dark Eldar, I would focus, I don't know the exact number of models that I would take, but I would focus on Warriors. Warriors actually performed really well against the Dark Eldar. And the reason for that is they have a lot of poison, but they don't have a lot of insta-death. And so these guys are all toughness 4, and if you keep them in cover, then even the things that ignore their 4+ armor, they'll still get a 5+ cover. Or I got really lucky in the game and got some Ironbark forests, and that allowed me to get a 3+ cover save against a lot of his shots. So they actually did a good amount of damage, even though I didn't even give them what they're best with. I just gave them what they look like they're equipped with, which is the Death Spitter and Scything Talons. Really, if you want to make your warriors good, you give them Scything Talons and Rending Claws, or you give them, even better, the Bone Swords to cause instant death and to ignore armor saves as well. And so I didn't even bring really good warriors, and they performed really well. So I would bring warriors as the basis. So as the HQ, I'd probably bring the Tyranid Prime, because why not? He's the cheapest one. Or maybe even the Parasite. The Parasite of Mortrex I would do. And then I'd fill up the rest of the army with lots of Hormagaunts, upgraded probably with Toxin Sacks, because I wouldn't worry about them being the ones to kill the vehicles. The vehicles on the Dark Eldar side are pretty easy to kill. I know they have their flicker fields and all of that, but when it comes down to, their armor value is rather low. So it would be a hard choice between the Hormagaunts having Toxin Sacks and having Adrenal Glands, giving them Furious Charge. Furious Charge would allow them to take on vehicles because it'd bring their strength up to 4, which is enough to glance the vehicle to death. But the Toxin Sacks would make them deadly against everything on the ground, because most Dark Eldar are toughness 3, which means they would be wounding them on 4s, re-rolling. And that just makes them that much more effective, especially because they have 3 attacks on the charge, re-rolling 1s, and actually have a half-decent initiative and weapon skill. So lots of Hormagaunts and Termagants, and then to back them up and to take down the vehicles, I'd almost want to take the Tyranids with the Death Spitters because they're strength 5. But the Raveners actually did very well for 2 reasons. 1, he couldn't shoot them in the first turn because they got the Deep Strike in. And 2, I armed them with Death Spitters, so they still got their 2 Scything Talons, or in this case I gave them Rending Claws. And then they were able to fire all those strength 5 shots and actually inflict some damage. The Hive Guard were invaluable, even though they got killed really easily by a Razorwing nest inside of one of the mysterious forests. But they provided a really good amount of support firepower. And if I had all those Hormagaunts, all of a sudden that Wraith Knight wouldn't have been a problem whatsoever, because the bane of any high-powered monstrous creatures is a bunch of little guys with poison, as we see with the Dark Eldar fighting against the Tyranids. So that's what I would bring. I might round it out with some other things, such as some Gene Stealers with the Broodlord, or some Zone Thropes coming in on my set Explorer, or even a Doom of Malantai if I'm really feeling desperate to try to beat the guy. But that's what I would do. I'd bring enough guys that I could take on a bunch of vehicles. I don't know if that would work very well against the whole Venom spam. I've played against a list where the guy just brought like a ridiculous number of Venoms, and there's just so many armor or hull points to beat through that it becomes very difficult. But at least against the other lists that I've played against, that would be more effective. So that's my whole bit on Tyranids versus Dark Eldar. So coming back. All right, so let's look at some other questions. Okay, Nifis12 says, how would you make a mass Imperial Guard infantry army against Necrons? See, the problem with that is I'm not super familiar with the Imperial Guard. I've played against them a lot of times, but each time it's always been the whole mechanized list, where you got a lot of chimeras full of usually like veterans with plasma weapons and all of that. And then of course with the new flyers, or not so new flyers anymore, and the Imperial Guard as well. But if you're going for a mass infantry list, they actually do half decent, because you get a lot of firepower, and the Necrons are more an elite army. There is ways to bring lots of guys, but just by having lots of infantry, it'll give the Necrons a little harder time. The Necrons have a lot that they can deal with the Imperial Guard armor now. So between vehicles getting a bit of a nerf with the 6th edition, and also things like Scarab Swarms and Gauss weapons and their flyers, all the Strength 7 Tesla going around, it gives the armor the run for the money. But if you do a mass Imperial Guard infantry army, then your only issue really is your mobility and being able to grab objectives. Other than that, you can survive a lot more firepower. That's how I like to look at my Tyranids. I like to bring... Recently, I've been doing smaller amounts just because I've been experimenting with it. But in reality, my ideal Tyranid army is to bring lots of models, because then, even if they're super powerful, your opponent that is, they have a lot of stuff to kill. And so there's only so much they can kill per turn, and then the dice will reduce that. And then cover saves, if you get enough guys out there, you can get them in cover and all that, will reduce it even more, and so all of a sudden it becomes hard for him to kill them. And most opponents won't think about strategically killing, they'll just think about trying to kill your army altogether. And so you can kind of give them targets to kill while your other guys grab objectives and win the game. So. Okay. So I keep getting a question, how does a Tau player defeat a deep striking Nid army? I unfortunately can't answer that because I haven't played against a new Tau at all yet. A deep striking Nid army, I guess, yeah, I can see how that would be a problem for Tau. Because Tau's strength is in their sit back and fire, and then they're overwatching. Now, they still get their overwatching, obviously, and deep striking isn't the end all to it. But it would be powerful. Like if I were doing a deep striking Nid army against Tau, I know I would want to bring a Doom Malantai, I'd want to bring Devourer Gaunts, 3 shots each. They're just awesome. You pack 20 of them into my set export, it drops down, you drop 20 Gaunts out, and all of a sudden you got 60 strength 4 shots coming your way, hitting on 4s. I don't care who you are, that's going to hurt. And on top of that, they give you -1 leadership when you're doing a morale check. And so for an army like Tau, who already have a lower leadership, that's a big deal. So yeah, so I don't know the answer to how I would beat that quite yet, just because I haven't played against that yet. I'll have to play a few games against Owen's Tau and bring deep striking Nid armies. You got to be careful, of course, with a full deep striking army, because you have to have some models on the table, otherwise you can get tabled. Because if he kills all your models before you can bring in the rest, then you're done. So you'd have to make sure the table was at least a bit to your advantage, that you could hide stuff. Master of the Blade, how do you kill a Hierophant? They're actually pretty easy to kill, especially compared to all the other stuff. They just have a lot of wounds and they're high toughness, but so many things can take care of that now. Yeah, and a lot of Tau stuff can take the interceptor rules, which means after you arrive from reserves, they can fire at you. So that can help a little bit too. Tripta says Grandmaster equals Dark Eldar Venom spam plus Lance everywhere. Yeah, see, and that's where 40k is not balanced. That's why I don't like going to tournaments, because there's always those lists that are just super awesome. And that's why I'm always surprised. Occasionally, this doesn't happen as much anymore, in the comments of my battle reports, people will be like, why did you bring that? That's not even that good. These things suck. You should have brought this. It's like, I brought them because they suck. I want to see how they work. I watch a lot of StarCraft battle reports, and my favorite ones are ones where people try unorthodox things, where they bring the units that nobody else brings because they're no longer powerful, especially because most of the time they usually win, because their opponent doesn't know what to do, because they're not used to playing against those things because they're so underpowered. So that's I consider a good battle report to be things that you don't normally see still actually having a chance on the battle. So even that Dark Eldar versus Tyrannus thing, even though I got my butt kicked, in the end, he was down to like a couple models, and he only won because he got first blood, because the score was 2-1, because we both had no scoring units left. And so if he hadn't got first blood, then it would have been over. Does stealth stack with stealth? No, it does not. Oh, somebody's talking about the War Machine Kickstarter project. I want to talk about that, but we're still talking about Tactica here. Caprico, Space Marines versus Space Marines, how to beat. I think you're joking, right? So, Tripta says, which is fine, Matt, when your opponent does the same. Actually, I find it fun to try it when my opponent doesn't do the same. When they come in with their super powerful list, and I'm like, well, let's see if I can beat it with this. But yes, I do agree. When you're playing casually, then you need to try stuff out. You don't just play to win. You're going to have that friend who always plays to win, and guess what? You're not going to want to play against him. So don't be that friend. Bailey Banky asked, what allies are best for Nids? Well, that's funny, because Nids can't have allies. Marshall Lade, okay, serious question, Matt. If you don't play to be the most competitive as possible, isn't the idea of Tactica a little redundant if the game's intent is for fun? I believe that Tactica, because I play to win, don't get me wrong. I don't play tournament scenes because you just get those lists that it's just like, okay, you win, you've got the leaf blower list. Okay, you brought 6 Necron flyers, surprise! Like there's always that list that when people see it, they groan. And yeah, I don't like that. But I do like to win. Don't get me wrong. I love to win. I prefer to win over losing. I think most people do. And so I'll be the first when I'm trying out a new army. The very first lists I go for are the super powerful ones. And I'll do my research on forums, and I'll play those tournament lists. But once I play them once or twice, you probably won't see them again. You might see parts of them. For example, with my Khador in War Machine, one of the Khador lists that's very powerful and very common at tournaments is the Doom Reaver list with Epic Butcher. You take Epic Butcher with just tons of Doom Reavers, just spammed, with Fenris and Yuri and a couple other things as well. And I played that list a couple times, and I can see why people play at tournaments, because it works spectacularly well. So after I played it 2 or 3 times, I'm like, well, that's enough of that. So I want to try something else. So I do want to win, and I do start off with those powerful lists because they're a good way to learn the army. And then I try to figure out how to make stuff that other people say don't work. The things that people are like, these things are completely nerfed, and you bring them in and you win with them. See, that to me is an accomplishment. So I do play competitively, and so that's why Tactica makes sense. But my Tactica isn't going to be, this is the one list that you have to bring. Or if you didn't bring this, then why are you even playing the game? Because it is for fun as well. All right. Okay, the Ruinous Power. So what is the best against pure Hormagaunts? Hormagaunts. And that's a good question, because I've almost got those 108 Hormagaunts painted, which means I'll have like 200 or 300 Hormagaunts, somewhere around there. Pure Hormagaunts, what's the best thing against them? Well, it depends which army you're playing. But the basic idea, well, if Hormagaunts, I keep doing it like that. Hormagaunts aren't very good against vehicles, especially if you can bring a vehicle that's at least armor 11. Then they can't hurt it at all. I mean armor 11 on the back. So if you're Necrons, you'll have no problem with a pure Hormagaunt list. You just bring warriors inside of Ghost Arcs. If you're Imperial Guard, well, that'll give you a bit more problem, but you have so many flamers and blast weapons that you can just set up an armored line. Because Hormagaunts will have a hard time even against vehicles that are armor 10. If you're Dark Eldar, well, you just bring your Dark Eldar or Dark Venom Spam, or your Venom Spam, which has lots of shots, and also will take the Hormagaunts a lot of time to punch through, because they get their 5+ invulnerable, and even in close combat. So that's pretty awesome. So pure Hormagaunt is not actually that hard to beat. Hormagaunt lists are powerful when they have backup. So you back them up with Termagants, for example, who are spawning Termagants, and they can also cast some psychic powers. So you give you bring your Termagants with 3 psychic powers and give them Biomancy, and hope that they get things like Endurance, and then they can cast Endurance or Enfeeble, so they can drop Enfeeble and give you -1 strength and toughness. And then the Hormagaunts come in with their Toxin Sacks, and are all of a sudden their strength is equal to your toughness when you're Space Marines, or it's better than yours if you're anybody else, and they can start doing a lot of damage. But I would say armor. Armor is the best defense against Hormagaunts. Monstrous creatures will die. Like, there's certain monstrous creatures that can do better than others if they have long-range weaponry that can try to kill them as much as possible. But they're not the answer, that's for sure. I know if I had all Hormagaunts and I saw monstrous creatures on the other side, I wouldn't worry. Smitey says, although there are those lists, it's pretty fun to play against those lists with some of those lists of your own. It gets super crazy. That's true. Now, once again, it comes down to the casual nature of the game, where you can tell your opponent, hey, I'm going to bring a Necron Flyer list. And so you do whatever you can against that. And they might be like, okay, I'll bring this super anti-flyer with flyer list. And so. Ultimentra, Imperial Guard versus Monstrous Creature Spam, what do I take? Well, that's tough, because Imperial Guard are getting a little outdated. And with a lot of the new monstrous creatures being toughness 6 with 6 wounds, it gets harder. But to take down monstrous creatures, you don't bother with your little last guns. That's not going to be the answer. You don't shoot a lot of strength for anything that's going to be wounding them on 5s or 6s. You don't want to really use that against the monstrous creatures. You want to use that against the little guys all around them, if there are any. And so Imperial Guard have a lot of ways to bring lots of plasma. So you do that. And then as many meltas as you can fit in. Don't bother with the large blast weapons that can do high strength, because that's just, it's a waste. You put it over 1 and you're going to get maybe 2 monstrous creatures if it scatters exactly where you want it to. That's if you don't hit them to begin with. If you don't get a direct hit. And so, yeah, I would say as much plasma as you can inside of vehicles. And vehicles are the answer, because monstrous creatures, at least for Tyranids, will have to pry open the vehicles first, and then you'll still have another shooting round against them, which can take them down. So I don't think you'd have that much difficulty against monstrous creature spam. Captain Cuckoo, winged Tervagon that birthed gargoyles. Good idea, or too over the top? It's a cool idea. Any idea can be used. There's more than one way to balance it. One would be in how many points it costs. And then like Turvagons kind of have a bit of a balance to them. Not that they are very powerful, don't get me wrong. But Turvagons have the balance that when they die, they do their backlash. And I don't know, it could be fun. It would be really neat to see that. Birthing gargoyles, because gargoyles just look like termagants with wings. So, Avenger, what is the best use of a royal court? All together or separated? You used one in the bat rep, but didn't see the in action. Hold on, let's see if I have some. Transition! I think I brought my royal court up here. Alright, here's an overlord. Yeah, I got some guys. So, let's just part ways here and leave room for... There's an overlord. And here's another overlord, don't need him. I think that it's there in the box that I didn't bring forward. That's too bad. Well, here's a lord. And yeah, they're mostly in the other box. Okay, fine. We won't do it that way. Have it all set up here, and then I forget to bring the right models, of course. Transition! I find the court, you can create the Death Star unit, the one that's really good, but I've yet to see that work really well in a game. It's fun to bring, but it eats up your points like crazy, and it only works in very specific situations. However, using your royal court as a utility, in other words, spreading them out amongst your army, can boost your army's capabilities incredibly well. If I was going to say the cheesiest thing that I could do within my royal court, it would be to bring lords with mind shackle scarabs, and to bring as many as you can, just mind shackle scarabs, nothing else. So these are very low points. And then the cryptex could be like the harbingers of destruction, because they have like the last cannon shot kind of thing. You can have the one that reduces range when you try to charge, another one that reduces number of attacks. There's all sorts of things that you can do with that. But really what the cheese comes down to at the royal court is each lord having a resurrection orb, I should have said that too, resurrection orb and mind shackle scarabs spread throughout the army. Now there's certain armies that won't really affect, like Eldar, Dark Eldar, Tau, Imperial Guard, like the ones where there are lots of little guys. But if the army that you're up against has monstrous creatures, like against Tyranids, I'm like terrified of mind shackle scarabs when I play Tyranids, because all of a sudden my monstrous creatures don't want to go into close combat because they'll end up killing themselves. And it works very, very well. So when you roll 3d6 on your leadership, even if you're a leadership of 10, you are very likely to fail that. So, and with the 10, it's like you have like a 55% chance of failing that, or something like that. Or maybe it's like 45, I can't remember which side of the 50% is on. And so I would say spread out would be better. And you can do the trick where you have 2 overlords and 2 royal courts, so you can get 2 of them into each unit if you really want them. So that would be my conclusion, that they're always better separated, except for very specific circumstances. Tripta says NIDS plus psychic powers are the only way to go, or to good. So freaking powerful. Everyone who says Tyranids suck just haven't played against a smart player. Yeah, Tyranids are definitely still competitive. They're not the top army right now, but with Biomancy, yeah, they're definitely competitive. Yeah, that's just really it. Chris, I bring 100 Slugga and Choppa Orc Boys and 100 Shoota Boys and 3 Orc Flyers. What do you do? How many points is that? Is that 1,500 points? That sounds about right. So they're not inside vehicles if it's 1,500 points. So they all have short ranges. And they're all in a bunch of little groups. So yeah. How would I deal with that? That's a good question, actually, because that's a lot of firepower. I don't know why you're bringing the 100 Slugga and Choppa Orc Boys. Just bring 200 Shoota Boys. Are Shoota Boys the same points cost as Slugga and Choppa as the regular boys? Are they 6 points each or 5 points each? But yeah, if you bring that many, which I think you could. What's the maximum squad size for orcs? Is it 20 or 30? If it's 30, you multiply it by 6. Yeah, you can bring 180 of them. If they're not inside trucks and stuff, which would make sense because if you're bringing that many, then I don't think that would be that hard to deal with. I just bring a lot of Gaunts and Hormagaunts and Turvagons. I'd bring Turvagons. Actually, that's what I would do. I would bring a huge Turbogon list. So there'd be 5 Turbogons, 3 of them being troop choices, accompanied by Termagants. And it'd just be tons of Termagants, and we would just bash tons of models, and it would be really cool and fun. And I think the Tyranids would come out on top, because the Turbogons themselves would have some nasty psychic powers to toss around, like reducing your strength and toughness by 1, or adding endurance to my guys. And all the Termagants would have counterattack, poison, furious charge, and a higher leadership. And they're fearless, of course, because they'd be in Synapse. So, yeah, the Orcs aren't really competitive anymore, unfortunately. They need an update pretty badly. Very badly. And they're like competitive in 1, maybe 2 different ways, and that's not even that competitive. Wow, is it 4 o'clock already? Jeez. I wanted to have some time for some live Q&A. So I'm just going to do it. All right, so transition out of the Tactica. We covered a bunch of stuff there. I think next time what I'll do is I'll take questions beforehand and actually prep some stuff so that I can show some Tactica there. So I've learned from that mistake here. Anyways, let's do some Q&A for just a few minutes, probably let's say 10 minutes. So I will just scroll down to the bottom of the chat, so resetting. So if you've already posted a question as you're watching this right now, I'm not going to look at it. I'm just going to start looking at the chat right now and answer as many questions as I possibly can in the next 10 minutes. And go. Marshall Aid, Matt, what percent of 40K do you think is list building? What percent do you think is tactics? And what percent is luck or any other factors? A good percentage is list building. I'd say if I was going to arbitrarily make up some percentages, say 50% list building, 30% tactics, 20% luck, because a lot of dice rolling there. The Ruinous Power, where did you get the shirt? I got it at miniwargaming.spreadshirt.com, and so can you, and all sorts of other shirts too. Nifs, will you ever use flayed ones? The answer is yes. Now that we have this painting bartering thing going on, it'll finally allow me to get all those other things painted that I've never been able to get painted because I don't want to paint them. And it'd be fun to use. Conquer, do you believe Sisters of Battle are getting squatted out? I hope not, but they should get rolled into another codex. Avenger, Matt, now's the time. Finally, do you prefer Tyranids or Necrons? Tyranids. Brotherhood, seen any of Mantic's new game, Dead Zone? What do you think? Yeah, I actually contributed to their Kickstarter. Looks cool. I don't have much to say yet because I want it in front of me, but it'll be a little while. Tripta, does Owen curse in battle reports by accident? I know as a Mormon you never would. Well, Mormons aren't perfect. They can curse too, but they, you shouldn't really. But then I would say that nobody should. Yes, he would do it by accident because he knows that he's not supposed to. Alice and Rosutton. I'm going to be playing a tournament at 1,000 points. It's very competitive. They ban allies and fortifications. Wow. I'm playing paladins from Grey Knights, which sounds too elitist, I know, but I think it will work really well. Thoughts? I agree. Hammerty, when do we get to see the green screen? What are you going to use it for first? I don't know yet. Grandmaster, favorite model? Nope. Server, what codex needs the next update? Well, Orcs need an update. Space Marines badly need an update, but I hear that one's coming in pretty soon. Yeah, I'll say those two. Kane will rise. Very nice. That's awesome username. I'm getting interest in Warhammer. Wondered what I should get first for 1,000 points. Necrons. 2 battle forces. That'll get you pretty close to there. 2 battle forces, and then you buy a Catacomb command barge because it will come with an Overlord. And that's useful. And so is a Catacomb command barge, or even as an Annihilation barge. That's where I would start. Right after that, you go for Ghost Arcs. It's just the way to start. You get 2 or 3 of them, and that'll get you in the right direction. Fishy Spots, hey Matt, one of the tables has a whole bunch of tree terrain and small bases of 2 to 3 trees. Who made the tree terrain? Most of it was created by greenleafterrain.com. A lot of the other stuff was created by our employees, Jordan in particular, when he was still working here. Okay. X-Treve, what's better, Grey Knights or Sisters of Battle? Grey Knights. Typherin, Matt, have you ever played against a pure Deathwing list? And do you think they're a good army? Yes, I have, and no, they are not. Pure Terminator armies just don't perform very well anymore because there's too many points into each model. And sure, they have a 2+ save, but lots of things negate 2+, and even those that don't, you just fail it, and boom, there goes all your points. Ultra Blood, what do you think of Dan's plan for his new YouTube channel? I think it's great. I like the idea. I hope that he is able to do it well. Diavlaplo, Matt, I thought that new cameras are full HD, but still all videos you make on YouTube are HD ready. How is it? We upload everything at 720p, which is HD. So they can do 1080p, but the reason we don't do that is most of our videos you wouldn't notice a difference. There's a big difference in size of the files, which creates more bandwidth issues. And our bandwidth here where we are is not very good. So that's why. So 720p, you won't notice much of a difference with 1080p with battle reports and the stuff that we do. Chris, War Machine Tactics, you think it will be fun? I do. The answer is yes, and I just contributed to that Kickstarter today. Go check it out. Go to Kickstarter.com, search for War Machine Tactics. It's basically they're going to take their game and put it in a computer game, but like making it a turn-based game. And I love that idea. I had that idea for Dark Potential. It won't happen for a long time, but I love it. It's going to take like another year to come out, but definitely go check it out, especially because they have exclusive models that you can only get if you contribute. And so I contributed, so I get all of them. And I look forward to covering that game and playing it in live sit-and plays and all that fun stuff. Flying Necron Master 201, will you be getting the new Necron Tesseract Vault? I have ordered 2 of them. Should arrive in the next week. Ash Ketchup 999, Matt, would Bloodletters with an instrument be able to bring in allies? I have no idea. Dave B, I'm looking to play Space Marines, but not the mains. Are there any special Space Marine chapters past Space Wolves Angels? Well, there's Black Templar, which I hope will get rolled into the regular one. Dark Angels. Grey Knights. So yeah, those are them. Agriculture, have you checked out the Robotech Minis game? No. Rotary, Spreadshirt only shows 3XL and 4XL. Do they ever stock other sizes such as large? Unfortunately, I have to make one product for the 3XL, 4XL, but if you scroll down, you'll see all the products. So each shirt is there twice. One of them for the small, medium, large, and extra large, and double extra large. And then there's another product for the triple extra large and quadruple extra large, because they're different types of shirts, and so there's different prices for them. So that's why you're seeing it that way. MiGs, are Necron Warrior models easy to break at the bases and feet? If you try, yeah. You can snap them easy, but they don't break that often. The Ruinous Power, and I should know because I just pile them in a box. The Ruinous Power, by the way, you guys got me into this game. Thank you. You're welcome. And as a gift, LOL, when I finish my army and I live in Cali, so how do I challenge you guys? I always see you guys from America there. How do I challenge? You just come down. Most of the people coming down from the States are here for like some other reason. They might be on vacation, but some of them actually do travel here just to play against us, which is awesome. Tripta, you going to sell your Space Marines since you never use them? I'd buy them off of you and come play a game with you. I had a better use for them. You want to see what that use was? This right here was one of the Land Raiders from that gray Space Marine army. And then we've got other various bits and pieces. There's a bit of a land speeder there. So that's what I'm doing with the Space Marine army. Slowly turning it into terrain. Vicious Matt, thanks for contributing to Dan's campaign. He's already at $1,200 approximately. That's awesome. Yeah. Punisher 1, disagree. 1080p is a huge jump from 720p. I agree. 1080p is way better than 720p. What I'm trying to say is in our battle reports, you won't notice much of a difference. I can tell you that for sure because I tested it. And I actually ran them side by side, and I was like, you couldn't see much of a difference. So, and it was with a big screen, too. Xtreve, I'm 17 and would like to know what age you started in wargaming. Well, right before I started before we started MiniWarGaming.com. So that would have been, I'm 32 now. I think I was like 26-ish, 26-ish. Conquer, you are the reason I started playing 40K. Thank you. No, thank you. Rotary, thanks, Mist. You're welcome. Dutchies will be Dutch. Hey, Matt, what are your thoughts on the Black Templars? You mentioned you wanted them rolled into Space Marines. Yeah, I think all the Space Marine chapters should be rolled into one book. I think it's kind of dumb that they each have their own codex, because they're all just the same thing with slightly different flavors, and it's just dumb. Put them all together, and then you can make like this HQ makes these guys troops, this HQ makes these guys troops. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with it, but one Space Marine, which I hear they're actually going to do. but I'm not sure about that. Avenger, Necrons, I read everywhere flayed ones are useless. Can you tell me a little about them? They are pretty useless because they're easy to kill, and they're a close combat unit that's not particularly good at close combat. Like, they have a lot of attacks, but yeah, they're not the greatest. But I want to bring them because they would be cool. Crystal Matthew. Hey Matt, what's your favorite orc unit, not including vehicles? Well, that's not fair. The Killacan, or the Death Dread is actually my favorite one because it looks so cool. But non-vehicle, Gazgul Thraka. There we go. I do like him a lot. Bailey Banky, do you like the new Lord of Skulls? It looks interesting. I haven't actually looked closely at it. We have ordered a couple, but I can't say yet until I see it in person. Captain Obvious says, you skipped right past me. I did? Oh, things must be moving fast enough that I missed a couple. What would you recommend for someone thinking about Kraken Tyranids? I think it's great. It's just a paint scheme, though. So if you like that paint scheme, then go for it. Migs, new Space Marine characters. Do you like them? Haven't looked at them, so I don't know. SJ Sound, how much does a custom table generally run? Depends on how custom you want it. It could be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 or $3,000. So like these ones right here, I actually won't tell you because I'm not sure if he'll quote you differently than us. So they're basically like from 1,000 up. Let me just put it that way. Swims, hey Matt, what happened to Joey Berry's live show? I don't know. Dave manages a live show, so I'm not actually in the loop with that. Brian, in the Dark Elder Battle Report, why didn't you try for Linebreaker with your Zone Throws? I thought only scoring units could get Linebreaker, and either way, we still had more turns to go, so he could easily turn around and start killing my guys. Punisher 1, if there's no difference, and the camera sensor is probably not recording in true 1080p, which is weird considering the kind of camera that you got. Oh no, it is. It is. It is. Then there is a difference. It's just not enough of a difference to make it worthwhile. Like, for example, in our vault, we pay for the storage. And there's a big difference in storage of 720p and 1080p. We'll eventually switch to 1080p, but just not yet. Marshall Lade, any words of wisdom for recent college grads? Yeah, get a good job. Goliath Online, have you heard any biomass updates on Tyranids and their new rework coming out? I've heard some rumors, like for the new year, but not much else. Sags Morris, hello Matt, what's your thoughts on Chaos Demons? I think that they are not that good, but I have only played against them a few times, so who knows. Captain Cuckoo, if you had to create a new army for 40k, what would they be and what would they do? I know, I think the Tyranids are near perfection, except for the way the models look, which I think is a big deal, but I like the Tyranids a lot, so I don't think I'd want to create another army. Avenger, with your Necron army, what is the hardest army you face, and same for Tyranids? Tyranids has been Dark Eldar. With Necrons, I haven't had a hard time with the Necrons. I've done pretty well with them. Who do I always lose to? I don't know. Chaos Space Marines, but that was before the update, so I don't know. I'm not sure. Extreme, where are you guys based? In Welland, Ontario, Canada, right close to Niagara Falls. The Mojo Back Project says, are there any types of questions you don't want us to ask? And is it cool if we post a question multiple times? Yeah, if I skip through your question, you can post it again. Any kinds of questions I don't want you to ask? Well, obviously inappropriate ones, but other than that, no, whatever you want. If I don't want to answer it, I just want to answer it. Goose 5x5, I'm a complete 40k newbie. My wife and I are building armies. She wants to build Sisters of Battle, but everyone says no. Why is that? Because they suck. But who cares? If she just wants to have fun, then Sisters of Battle are fine. Omnifist, is it possible to do color coordinated dice for battle reports? Yes, of course. It's possible. Kane will rise. Will you make longer live streams sometime in the future? I don't know. Tripta, how do you feel about Beasts of War's new format / studio? A lot of their fans are complaining about the way things are going. I don't know why they are. They haven't changed much. So I think they're fine. They cover all the games that we don't, so it's kind of nice to have somebody doing that. Marshall Lade, thanks Matt, get a good job. I'll remember that forever. That's right. That's why you went to college. If you can't find a good job, then you got to create a good job. That's not always easy either. Swims, thanks. Okay, well, Dutchies will be Dutch. Is there a reason why you're getting rid of your Marines? The Land Raider did get a nice resting place, by the way. I'm not really trying to get rid of them. It's just more I never use them, and they've been there forever. And it's like, hey, we want to make some terrain. Here, have some of these Land Raiders that normally have to pay a lot of money for, but they've been sitting here literally for 4 or 5 years, so they're really not much value anymore, especially because they had a nice fine layer of dust on them. Nifs, will you guys be playing Fantasy in the near future? Yes. Bailey, Banky, LOL, Necron's OP, so everything's easy. Well, they're not totally OP. They were when they first came out, but a lot of people have ways to deal with them now. But they are strong. I won't lie about that. LS in a row, Sutton, best HQ in the game? Yes. I don't have one. I don't know. I don't know. Goliath Online, what would you do as a Tyranid player if you had to deal with 2++ possessed or 360 zombie cultists and Typhus plus Lord with Black Mace? I would curl up and die. That would probably be very hard to take care of. I don't know. I guess I'd counter it with as many models as I could bring. Just lots of Hormagaunts with poison. Or Turbigon. A Turbigon list might do it as well. Just something where you just pile out the bodies and try to just outlast them. It's 15. Avenger, it's a personal question, so you might not answer. How do you get all the money to buy all those models? You have so much models, it must be worth like $3,000. Well, the models are all owned by the company, by MiniWarGaming. So MiniWarGaming makes money by vault members, by advertising revenue, by, well, a bit by dark potential. We do some wholesaling. We used to have our store. That would make us money too. So that money has to be put, like, buying models is a necessary cost of our business because we have to have the models to play. So that's why we have a lot. It's kind of like going to a mechanic and being like, how do you afford all these parts in the wall? It's like, well, we kind of need these parts. So it's part of the expense of the business. So that's how. It is kind of nice to be able to get as much as I want, pretty much. TJS Carrot, do you have plans to release Battle Report seasons as physical DVDs? Yes, we do actually. Flying Necron Master, will you make a triple Catan list for one of your bat reps? It's not a bad idea, just for fun. Maybe. Punisher 1, Matt, what are you looking to add for your Khador? I also have very specific suggestions. The answer to that for any of my armies would be everything I don't have. Because I don't care about if something is completely useless, I will still buy it and I will still bring it into a game. So basically everything I don't have, that's what I want to add. And that's a lot of stuff right now. I have a couple 100 points of guys, but I haven't added to it for a while, so there's been all sorts of new releases that I want to get. So I think I'm out of time. It's past 4:15. I've got to clean up, get ready, and get home. But thank you very much for joining me on my live sit and talk, where we talked about some Tactica, some news, and now we just answered a bunch of Q&A. As always, this is Matthew from MiniWarGaming. Happy wargaming.